And I will challenge anyone to disprove what I've just said.
Anyone. To me, and the studies I've done, the black people from the transatlantic slave trade, the Jamaicans, Haitians, Dominicans, African Americans, they are all the descendants of the nation of Israel that the Bible speaks of. Yeah?
I'm fully well open to truth and knowledge. I'm a seeker of truth, and that's all. Yeah?
Do you know what it is, my brother? I'll tell you this, yeah? Like, nobody can bring any information that can disprove that the nations of the planet didn't start in the Bible. Yeah, I don't care who says it. No black person whose descendants are from the transatlantic slave trade can actually tell themselves where they're from. Yeah, all history teaches us. Sorry for shouting. All history teaches us is that we were taken from the west coast of Africa into slavery and that we're Africans. Yeah. A lot of people on the planet today that are descendants of the slave trade believe themselves to be African because they believe that the African people got taken and Africans sold Africans into slavery. I don't believe that. I don't believe that's the case.
No, we know that. We know that. We actually know that's not the case.
Thank you. Hebrews in Egypt. This is what I was trying to show Sarah Garvey yesterday. This is the Israelites in Egypt, an archaeological outlook on the biblical Exodus traditions. Yeah? So this is an archaeologist who studied bones, structures, and places in Egypt to see if the biblical Exodus was real, because he said he didn't believe it, thought it was a lie. You get me?
Stop. Repeat that again.
He was trying to discredit the Exodus. He said the Exodus didn't happen, and he didn't believe it was real. That's why he entered into this study, because he's not a Christian, he's not a believer. He just believes that story isn't real. It's a 35-page document. First, I'm going to read you the conclusion of what he got to after everything. Yeah?
Go on.
We entered this study questioning if Bible sources, specifically the Exodus accounts, are trustworthy stories when taken from a historical perspective. So let us take a moment to sum up what had been shown by this reading. First, it was demonstrated that there is a plethora of archaeological evidence supporting the notion of Shemite presence in Egypt, and that it is plausible that the Israelites would have been a minority amongst the Canaanites. Contemporaries at this time could have been amid these Shemite people. Second, it was shown that Egyptian buildings experience similar working conditions to what was recorded by the Israelites. Also, it has been shown that the Hebrew god Yahweh was known to the Egyptians following the proposed early dates of the Exodus. Eastern Frontier Canal and excavations at Tel al-Borg have revealed that Egypt had a heavily fortified eastern front following the expulsion of the Hyksos, which makes credible Israelite decisions to take a longer route out of Egypt to Canaan, and also provides a plausible location to the biblical Pi Haroth something.
All right, stop.
No, go on.
I want you to explain what you're reading. So explain that.
Right. What this man's saying is, in his archaeological studies, he has found that there is plausible evidence that the Israelites were definitely in Egypt, because there was definitely a Shemite presence there by the buildings that were built similar to Shemite buildings that Egyptians had, and the Egyptians knew about the Hebrew god Yahweh because of an event that had taken place in Egypt prior to the Exodus. And he got this information from excavations at Tel al-Borg, which would be an Egyptian site. It says natural explanations were also given for plagues and miracles recorded in the Exodus, showing that the story was not entirely mythological, yet nonetheless miraculous. Yeah, this study also put forward at least two plausible routes for the Exodus based on the amalgamation of biblical place names, archaeological events, similarities of modern sites. This was the last little bit. Through this study gave no archaeological evidence proving that the Exodus actually happened. I feel there is an overabundance of indirect evidence which is often overlooked to leave the reader with a closing thought. What becomes of having faith if there was no direct proof of God? What he's saying is, when he studied all these things that had things to do with the Exodus, yeah, he's saying there's too much evidence showing similarities to biblical stories to say this never happened. Do you get me? So he's saying it must have happened because there's accounts of this all throughout Egypt.
Yeah.
So, as me and you know, if there's evidence of Shemite people in Egypt which relates to the biblical Exodus, they can't be Egyptians.
First of all, yeah, what I say, first of all, we have to realize, yeah, that history, the literature in history, the literature about history was changed, yeah. So in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the literature based on history was changed. They started to tell different history. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I know this is because I've started to find and research and look at books that were written in the 1800s, written in the 1600s, written in the 1500s and 1700s, yeah. And I look at those books, and those books were telling you what was on at the time and what was happening. And
yeah.
I can tell you a very good history.
1 minute.
Go on.
Yeah, go on.
All right. So they tell you a very different history to what was written after the 1800s. Yeah. Now, when you look at the old book, so now we're not even talking about anything to do with Bible or anything like that. This is talking about factual history now. When you look at the old book, yeah, it tells you there's so, first and foremost, there is so much writing on the Hebrew people. Yeah, so I'm not even talking about biblical.
Yeah, the nation of Israel.
The people who spoke the Hebrew language.
Yeah.
The people who built the first and second temple of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
That nation of people there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is so much written about those people. There's no way on earth that they didn't exist. If they didn't exist, who spoke that language?
Yes.
Who spoke the ancient Hebrew language, biblical Hebrew language? Was that made up just to put in place? Or so obviously there was a people that spoke that language then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they didn't just make up the Hebrew language and say, okay, then we'll say these people spoke it. That's the language of a nation of people. We can agree on that. That actually existed.
Yeah, you can't say that language never existed. It's a factual.
So that is a language of a people. That those people had to exist.
What we've not been taught is the Renaissance, my brother. Yeah, what the Renaissance really means and what the Renaissance was all about. Yeah, it says Renaissance and it's called rebirth, but the rebirth of what? What is the rebirth?
The rebirth of the European nation being in control of the world.
Right, and the only place the Renaissance didn't take place was in Russia. That's why when you go to Russia, you'll find black icons in all their churches. Because Russia didn't allow no Renaissance to take place over there. They didn't allow the whitewashing of history. They didn't allow them to paint their pictures as white people now. So that's why when you go to Russia, you got a black Madonna, and you got a black Virgin Mary, and a black Jesus Christ. Because in Russia, they're Orthodox. So they kept things out it's supposed to be. You get me? But
remember, the history, what is written about history was changed in the early 19th century, towards the 18th century, and the beginning of the 19th century. They changed what was history, what was written in the history book. Now, the reason why they changed that, and what they actually changed was who the Hebrew people were.
Yeah.
So before the 1800s. It will clearly tell you, the history books and that will clearly tell you the Hebrew people were Negro. They have our history is mad. Our history, we have a big history, very, very well documented before the 1800s. It was documented spot on. They studied us hard, and I'm not talking about all black people. I'm talking about the ancient tribes of Israel.
Check this, yeah. Check the magic. What I've noticed, yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna. So yeah, my thing when people are asking, when people are asking, where's the artifact that proves these people alive? Now, my question is this: if they changed all the literature, yeah, of modern times to rewrite to hide the identity of these people, yeah, they changed the whole all the literature.
Yes.
In the whole world.
Yes, but check this. Let me jump in. Check what's it. It's not just the literature they changed from. They changed the people that you. They've changed that the literature. I'm going to read something in a minute. The literature's still there, but when you read in the literature, you're seeing another people.
Yeah, but yo, you know what I say? So now when I say they changed it, I mean because when after the 1800s, after the 1900s, and you can people can go and see this themselves. All they have to do is find the old book.
Yeah.
Old book. And then and start looking at the newer ones and you think, rotted. Look what this is at 50 years.
Yeah.
So my thing is this: if they did that with the writings, yeah, what makes any of us believe that we are going to have access to artifacts, bones?
Thank you.
Anything like that is going to give us physical evidence? It doesn't make.
Because in changing the writings, they've got to get rid of the artifacts as well. This is why, check what's mad. Check what people don't even realise. This is why it goes back to shooting the noses off, fam. That's where they started changing. Shooting the noses off 4 statues. So that's the starting of the change. We're changing statues, and also we're going to change the literature. So all these people are going to be seen as white from Egypt right up until Rome. But obviously, because now we've been in slavery and in captivity for so many years, we don't know who we belong to. We just think we belong to Africa as a continent.
Oh, that was my next thing.
Go on.
That's the power. So that was my next thing, yeah. My next thing was, so what about everyone that's saying, yo, or African? You know what I'm trying to say? Because I had this conversation the other day, and even the people that will still admit and say, yeah, we are those people, the real Israelites, yeah. The original seed of Israel was black, yeah. But we're all African anyway because it's all the same landmass.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So why isn't the white man African? That's what I asked, man. Why does no one say the white man's African? Because the white man's our closest brother, not the African. So I don't understand that.
We're not going to go there yet. Let's not go there yet.
Man said, yeah. Unless everyone in the world is African because the world originates from Africa, we can't be African. Because we migrated through Africa to the kingdom of Judah.
Yeah, yeah.
You get me? And this is why no one on the planet can tell me which African country we belong to. You see that? Kingdom of Judah.
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom of Judah, without the H.
And where is that?
Check it. Wahuda, Slave Coast.
West coast of Africa.
There's Ghana.
Uh-huh.
You get me? Judah. Let me zoom out.
Negro land.
Negro land.
Yeah, because in old literature and old writings, the Negro and the Sub-Saharan African was definitely differentiated as two different people.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that I've seen, which I always bang on about, you know what I'm saying? And I'll find it again so I can show it to the world. I'm going to find it again. But I've seen a slave document here where they categorized the slaves. And, okay, and in this document, it doesn't even say that an African could be enslaved. It says that an African could only be enslaved if they had...
Yes, man, like the... Say again, my brother.
They said that African could only be enslaved if they had 8% Negro blood. How they would tell that, I don't know. But what it does show is that they differentiated those as two different people.
Yes.
You know? Now, many people would say that that's what the Europeans did. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But my answer to that would be no, because it was the people over there. The Europeans had to have people who knew who was who.
Yes.
Why when Columbus travelled and found the thingy, he had a Moor with him who showed him who was his what's the word?
No, wait a minute, 1 minute. I got his name.
Did you give his name?
Yeah, it was a Hebrew. He brought one man with him, yeah, and he was a Hebrew. He was speaking Hebrew.
Alright, hold tight, my brother Noble 187. So my brother says all the slave posters here say Negro for sale, not African, because that's what it is.
Louis de Torres, yeah, Louis de Torres died in 1493. Was Christopher Columbus's interpreter on his